Did you know Microsoft just renamed one of its most important employee tools? Most people didn't even notice. This isn't some minor app nobody uses. It's the tool that delivers company news, gives quick access to benefits and time off requests, and pulls everything together in one place. By the end of this episode, you'll understand what Viva Connections actually is, why the rebrand matters, and whether your organization should be using it. Let's dive in from the old problem to the new solution. The old intranet problem. Imagine going back about 10 years. If you worked at a company with more than a few hundred people, you probably had an intranet. It was that one website where HR posted the holiday schedule, IT put the password policy, and leadership shared quarterly updates. For most employees, it was a place you visited maybe once a month, if you remembered the URL. The problem was, these intranets were static. They were one-size-fits-all landing pages that rarely changed, so everyone saw the same content whether you worked in accounting or on the factory floor. Finding specific information meant hunting across multiple sites, portals, and tools. The pension policy was on one page, the expense form was buried 3 clicks deep in another site, and the IT help desk link, good luck remembering where that lived. The result was predictable. You'd get low engagement, outdated content, and frustrated workers who eventually stopped trying. Classic SharePoint intranets were especially bad at 2 things: mobile accessibility and personalization. If you were on the shop floor or working from a coffee shop, forget it. The experience was terrible. Some organizations tried to fix this with custom development. They'd build a custom portal, hire consultants to maintain it, and spend a fortune keeping it current. That worked for a while, but it was expensive and hard to maintain. Then the pandemic hit, and suddenly employees were working from anywhere: home, warehouses, hospital floors. The old intranet model wasn't just outdated anymore, it was broken. You couldn't expect someone to VPN into the corporate network just to find the lunch menu or read a CEO update. So Microsoft looked at this problem and built something different. That something is Viva Connections. What is Viva Connections? The simple definition. So here's the simplest definition. Viva Connections is an employee experience app that lives inside Microsoft Teams. And you can think of it as a digital front door. One place where employees go for company news, tools, and resources. Instead of opening 5 different browser tabs, they open one app inside the tool they already use all day. Now, Viva Connections isn't a standalone product. It's built on top of SharePoint, specifically a SharePoint home site that acts as the foundation. The app pulls content from that site and presents it in a friendlier, more personalized way, so while it's SharePoint under the hood, the experience feels completely different. The app has 3 core components: the newsreader, a feed of company updates tailored to each employee, the dashboard, cards that link to tools like submitting time off or checking training progress, and resources, a curated list of links to important content like policies and benefits. We'll dig into each of these in a moment. Viva Connections works everywhere: desktop, tablet, mobile. And the experience is consistent across all devices, which is a huge advantage for organizations with frontline workers who don't sit at a desk all day. Here's the part that surprises most people. The basic version is included with your Microsoft 365 subscription, so you don't need to buy anything extra. There's a feature-rich version with targeted push notifications and premium analytics, but the core experience, the newsreader, the dashboard, the resources, is already there waiting for you. But here's where it gets interesting and confusing. In 2026, Microsoft changed the name. The 2026 rebrand, Viva Connections, is now SharePoint. So in mid-2026, between May and July, Microsoft renamed the Viva Connections app inside Teams to the SharePoint app. It happened quietly over a few months, and if you opened Teams one morning, the icon that said Viva Connections now said SharePoint. Why did they do this? It actually makes a lot of sense when you think about it. Viva Connections was always powered by SharePoint. The news, the dashboard, the resources, all of it came from a SharePoint home site behind the scenes. But customers kept treating it like a separate product, asking, do I need a Viva license for this? Is this something new I have to learn? The answer was always no, but the confusion persisted. So Microsoft decided to just call it what it is. It's SharePoint. The new name clears up that confusion once and for all. Now, what actually changed? The app name in Teams, the branding, and the default experience all changed. If your organization hadn't customized the app name, your employees now see SharePoint, where they used to see Viva Connections. The global navigation inside the app reflects the same change, and search is now scoped to SharePoint content by default. When someone searches from inside the app, they only see SharePoint results, not the entire Microsoft 365 universe. But here's what didn't change. The functionality, management tools, and admin experience are all identical to before. If you already had Viva Connections set up with a custom name and logo, nothing changes for your users. The rename only affects tenants that hadn't customized the app name. There are some nice admin improvements that came alongside the rename. SharePoint administrators can now create home sites directly from the SharePoint Admin Center instead of having to go through the Viva Connections console. That's one less step. two new web parts also became available, the resources web part and the announcements web part, and neither requires an extra license, so they're available to every SharePoint customer. That matters because the announcements web part used to be locked behind a paid Viva license. The name changed, but the core experience stayed the same. So what exactly is that experience? Let's look at the three building blocks. Component one, the newsreader. So let's start with the first component, the newsreader. This is probably the piece most employees will interact with the most. It's a feed of company news, updates, and announcements, all curated and personalized for each person. When you open the SharePoint app in Teams, the newsreader is right there, showing you the latest post from your organization. But here's what makes it different from the old intranet news page. The newsreader doesn't show everyone the same content. It uses Microsoft Graph to figure out what's relevant to you based on your role, your department, and the people you work with. If you're on the sales team, you'll see sales updates first. If you're in HR, you'll see policy changes and benefits news. The system does this automatically without anyone having to manually tag content for each department. Now there's a new announcements web part that came with the 2026 updates. This used to require a premium license, but now it's available to all SharePoint customers. Think of announcements as micro news, short, targeted updates that appear in the feed and can even trigger a Teams notification. You can aim them at specific groups using Microsoft Entra ID groups, so only the right people see the right content. A warehouse safety update goes to warehouse workers. A finance policy change goes to the finance team. Nobody gets flooded with noise they don't need. If your organization has the Viva Suite version, you also get targeted push notifications. That means when there's an urgent announcement, a plant closure, a system outage, a leadership change, employees get a push notification on their phone, not just a post in the feed. For frontline workers who don't check email regularly, this is a game changer. Here's a stat that really matters. After a week, engagement on any piece of content drops off a cliff. People don't scroll back through old news. They look at what's fresh. So if you're running Viva Connections, you need to keep the feed active. Multiple posts per week. Fresh content. Otherwise, employees stop opening the app because they've already seen everything. Freshness is what drives the habit. News keeps employees informed, but they also need quick access to tools and tasks. That's where the dashboard comes in. Component 2, the dashboard. The second building block is the dashboard, and this is where Viva Connections starts to feel less like a news site and more like a command center. The dashboard is a set of cards. Each card links to a tool, an app, or a piece of information. Think of it as a home screen for your work life. These cards aren't just static links. They're built on something called adaptive cards and the SharePoint framework, or SPFX. That's a technical way of saying IT teams can build custom cards without writing a ton of code. If your company uses a time-off system, an expense reporting tool, or a training platform, someone can create a card that connects directly to it. One click and you're submitting that vacation request or checking your training progress. No navigating through menus, no remembering which URL goes where. Here's a concrete example. Imagine you're an employee who needs to request time off. In the old world, you'd open a browser, find the HR portal, log in, navigate to the time off section, and fill out a form. With the dashboard, there's a card that says request time off. You click it and the form opens right there. Same for expense reports, same for checking your upcoming meetings, same for launching a training module. Each card eliminates steps. Now here's something that changed with the 2026 updates. End users can now personalize their own dashboard view. You can hide cards you don't use, reorder them so your most important tools are at the top, or even add your own cards. And this personalization is available to every end user, regardless of whether they have edit permissions on the SharePoint site. You don't need to be a site owner to customize your dashboard. It's your view, your way. There's also a see all experience that gives users a focused view of all their dashboard cards in one place. Instead of scrolling through a long list, you get a clean, full-screen view of everything available. And from there, you can customize, hide, or reorder to your heart's content. One stat from Microsoft's own research really drives home the importance of the dashboard. Dashboards with 10 or more cards achieve 3 times the engagement of dashboards with fewer than 5 cards. That's not a small difference. The takeaway is clear. Don't be shy about adding cards. Cover multiple user needs. Give people a reason to come back. A sparse dashboard tells employees there's nothing useful here. A rich one tells them this is where work happens. So you have news and you have tools. But what about finding the right links and documents? That's the third piece. Component 3, resources. The third component is resources. It sounds simple, but it might save your sanity. Think of it as your own digital filing cabinet. You have policies, benefits information, IT help desk links, training materials, all organized in one place. If you've ever managed a traditional intranet, you know the pain of keeping links up to date. Someone changes the URL for the benefits portal, and suddenly every page has a broken link. You spend hours hunting them down, one by one. The new resources web part solves this with something called content reuse. You create a central list of resources, links to policies, forms, tools, whatever, and then add the resources web part to multiple pages across your SharePoint site. When you update a link in that central list, it updates everywhere. Every page that uses that web part reflects the change automatically. Update once and it's done. No more hunting down outdated links. This feature sounds boring until you've had to fix a broken benefits link on 20 different pages. Then it becomes your favorite thing in the world. You can organize resources by category, audience, or topic. You might have a section for HR policies, another for IT support, another for training materials. You can target specific resources to specific groups using the same Entra ID groups we talked about earlier. A factory worker sees safety procedures and shift schedules. An office worker sees travel policies and expense guidelines. Everyone sees what they need and nothing they don't. And with global navigation, those resources are accessible from anywhere in SharePoint. You don't have to be inside the SharePoint app in Teams to find what you need. The navigation follows you across the entire SharePoint experience. One click and you're back to your company's curated resource list. So those are the three components. News keeps you informed, the dashboard helps you get things done, and resources helps you find what you need. But here's the real question. Does any of this actually work? Let's look at the numbers. The engagement stats that matter. Let's talk numbers. Microsoft has done a lot of research on Viva Connections adoption. First, the bad news. Organizations that deploy Viva Connections without a defined strategy typically see fewer than 1 in 10 employees using it weekly. That's 10%. And within 8 to 12 weeks, there's a significant drop-off. People open it, find nothing useful, and never come back. The app becomes a ghost town. So what separates the successful deployments from the failures? The biggest factor is pinning. Organizations that pin the Viva Connections app globally in Teams see 75% of their weekly active usage come from that single action. 3 out of 4 weekly users only open the app because it's right there in their Teams sidebar. If you bury it somewhere, people won't find it. If you pin it, they use it. That's a low-effort move that makes a real difference. Mobile is another huge factor. Mobile users have double the engagement of desktop users. You'd think people at their desks would engage more, but mobile fits into the flow of work differently. You check it on the bus, you glance at it between tasks, you open it during a shift change. And for frontline workers, the numbers are even more dramatic. They show approximately 3 times the weekly engagement of desk-based information workers. Frontline workers don't sit at a computer all day. Their phone is their primary work device. If the intranet isn't on their phone, it doesn't exist for them. The overall impact is real. Organizations adopting Viva Connections report up to 30% higher employee engagement compared to legacy portals. That's a measurable improvement in how connected people feel to their company. But you have to work for it. The research suggests a healthy target: 50% or higher weekly active users, 60% or higher at 6 months, and 75% or higher monthly positive response on employee surveys. Those are the benchmarks you should aim for. One more stat worth understanding. 43% of Microsoft 365 intranet implementations need a layered solution within 18 to 24 months. That means nearly half of organizations eventually hit a wall where the out-of-the-box capabilities aren't enough. They need third-party tools for advanced governance, better search, or deeper personalization. That doesn't mean Viva Connections is a failure. It means you should plan for growth. Start simple, but know that you might need to add more later. So the numbers are compelling. But is Viva Connections right for every organization? Let's talk about who actually needs this. Who actually needs this? Practical guidance. So who actually needs Viva Connections? The honest answer, not everyone, but more organizations than you might think. Let's break it down by size. If your organization has under 2,000 employees with simple communication needs, the out-of-the-box Viva Connections experience is usually enough. You set up a SharePoint home site, configure the newsreader, add a few dashboard cards, and you're done. No massive customization project, no extra license. It's included with your Microsoft 365 subscription. And if your employees already use Teams, this is a natural fit. They're already in the app, they just need a reason to open it. On the other end, large enterprises with 50,000 or more employees use Viva Connections as their single front door. With that many people, you can't have them navigating 50 different portals. You need one entry point that's personalized, branded, and consistent. Viva Connections delivers that. It becomes the homepage for your entire organization, no matter the department, location, or role. Here's the key question. Do your employees already live in Microsoft Teams? If yes, Viva Connections is a natural fit. You're not asking them to learn a new tool. You're putting the intranet inside the tool they already use. That's a much lower barrier to adoption than asking them to bookmark a new URL. There are 2 versions. The basic version comes with Microsoft 365. You get the newsreader, dashboard, resources, and audience targeting via Entra ID groups. That's enough for most organizations. The Viva Suite version adds push notifications, premium analytics, and AI features through Copilot. If you have frontline workers who need urgent notifications on their phones, or if you want deep engagement analytics, the premium version is worth it. But here's the honest truth. Viva Connections is not a replacement for complex governance, advanced search, or deep workflow automation. If you need strict content lifecycle management, federated search, or complex approval workflows, you'll likely need a layered solution. That's where third-party intranet platforms come in. They build on top of Microsoft 365 and add capabilities that native tools don't provide. The 43% stat we mentioned earlier, that's the group that needs these additional tools. So here's the practical guidance. If you're a small to mid-sized organization already using Teams, start with the basic version. If you're a large enterprise, use Viva Connections as your front door but plan for additional tools as you grow. And if you have complex governance or search needs, budget for a layered solution from the start. So now you know what it is, how it works, and who it's for. What's the first step? Here's what you do. Check if you have Microsoft 365. If you do, you already have access to Viva Connections. No purchase needed. Then set up a SharePoint home site. That's the foundation everything else builds on. Without it, the app has nothing to show. Next, pin the app globally in Teams. That single action drives 75% of weekly active usage. It's the most effective move you can make. And keep the content fresh. Old news is ignored news. Publish multiple times per week. Target your content to the right audiences. Make it worth opening. So that's the system. 3 components, 1 app, and a name that keeps changing, but the value stays the same. Start with your home site, pin it in Teams, and keep the content fresh. Subscribe for more breakdowns like this, and drop a comment if you're using Viva Connections in your organization.